Hello, people. Welcome back to another video by your good friend, the Big Aniki Super Chad Marco. Make sure you attack the like button, subscribe, and let's have a little conversation. So, this video is about fear of talking to girls or approaching girls. I was going through my comments a couple days ago when I was preparing for the comment video and getting comments for the next two episodes of the podcast. And somebody, I forgot who it was. It was a quick comment, and somebody replied to him. But basically, the first guy, he was talking about just not wanting to be bothered with women, like the typical MGTOW stance, right? And then somebody had replied and said that no, you're just afraid of talking to girls. And when I saw that, it made me think back to what happened recently. And I told this story about how I was going to the store and there was this girl that kept talking to me about seeing me running around town. I was thinking about talking to her and approaching her, and I was too afraid to do it, right? And I was talking about how that whole moment made me sort of reflect and realize that I didn't want to, or really just didn't want it bad enough to overcome the fear of approaching, but really recognizing that I still had those lingering fears and anxieties regarding approaching and talking to women. But seeing that comment and thinking back to that moment just made me think about certain things. And in particular, what I wanted to talk about is knowing the difference between when you're too afraid to do something versus when you have other legitimate reasons not to do it. And I think that what sort of makes this particular subject complicated is that you can really have both. You can experience both simultaneously. So when I look at myself, for instance, is that I know for a fact that I definitely still have those lingering fears of talking to and approaching women with the intention of asking them out on a date or something like that. I've never denied that. But at the same time, I also know that's not the primary reason as to why I don't pursue women. And see, I think it's important. That's why it's important to reflect on and try to figure out why exactly aren't you doing that? Because the thing is, you don't want to not do something that you want to do because of fear. And so that's why it's so important to make that distinction. Are you not talking to girls because you're afraid of them? Or are you really in your MGTOW monk bag? And really, again, it could be a combination of both. And I think that's with me. But, when I look at my particular situation where, okay, I can be honest and say when I see attractive women, I would experience fear or approach anxiety in regards to talking to them, right? But okay, then why not just do it? Why not just overcome that and go talk to the girl? And see, this is when the other shit comes into play. It's because it's that old MGTOW saying, at least from my perspective, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. When I see those opportunities present themselves, I run all these different scenarios in my head of why it wouldn't be worth it, why it's not worth the effort, why I would get rejected, etc., etc. And it's not even that I'm being irrational when I think of these things. And just for example, okay, I see a girl, she's attractive, why not talk to her? Okay, let's put the fear to the side and let's look at the reality. The reality is, more than likely, I'm going to get rejected. More than likely, she's either going to have a boyfriend or she's not going to find me attractive, right? And then, okay, well, what about the next girl? Same shit. And see, I noticed that a lot of times normie folk, they would try to push or convince guys to just go out there and start talking to girls and shit like that. But I say this. Put your money where your mouth is. And this is how I prove my point, right? Let's just say, for instance, And okay, like let's just take us, right? Like us within my sphere of the internet, and you guys know me up and down. Well, as much as information I've given you, you know what I look like. So let's just say, for instance, like just hypothetically, I said, okay, you have $1,000, right? You have $1,000, and I'm going to approach and ask out 10 girls. Now, each time I approach them, you got to bet 100 of that 1,000, whether she rejects me or not, right? Now, how are you going to bet? How are you going to bet that money? If you're smart, more than likely, you're going to bet against me every single time, regardless of the fact that you guys know how awesome I am, how handsome I am, how creative, right? You would, if you're smart, you would bet every time against me. You would say, as much as I like Chad Marco, understanding how dating dynamics work, more than likely he's gonna get rejected than accepted or given a phone number or whatever. So on each of those approaches, like I'm just being real. If it was me, I would bet against myself every single time. Not because I feel bad about myself or because I hate myself, but that's just the brutal reality of dating. So what I'm saying is, again, the fear is there. We've accepted it, we've processed it, right? I'm saying put that to the side. The reality is that even if I overcome that fear and talk to her, more than likely I'm gonna get rejected. Whether I talk to 5 girls, 10 girls, 15, 20, now of course, at some point somebody has to say yes. But see, there's already this minefield of rejections that you have to endure, right? Now let's say you get a phone number. What if she flakes? Now you're dealing with another tier of possibilities and problems. You get a phone number, it could be a fake phone number. She could flake. You're trying to set up a date, it doesn't work out, etc. So now you're in tier 2 of the problems. Okay, let's say you start going on a date. What is it about me as we start getting to know each other that she might not like? For instance, right? Oh, he lived with his mom. He's broke. He's a virgin. He got an Android. Why did he? Because you know how fickle girls are about that shit. They looking for any. So that's that third tier of. And then it's like, what about her? What about the shit about her? She might be toxic. She might have a kid. You know, it's funny that same girl I was talking about, where I was thinking about asking her out, I seen her later carrying a child, right? So I was like, it just confirmed. It confirmed the people say don't overthink it, don't run it, and in a lot of situations you really shouldn't. But when you predict these things and it happens the way you think it does, that only reinforces the ideas that you already have, the idea that you shouldn't approach, right? When the girl that I thought about talking to ends up, I'm seeing her and she got a kid, and who knows, maybe she got another one, maybe she had, but it confirms and justifies my inaction. But that's a whole nother thing. But the point is that even when you take the fear of it out of the equation, there's another mountain of bullshit and possibilities that you have to contend with. And that's what, like really, the fear and anxiety is just a wall that I believe that I could overcome if I had enough of a compelling reason to do so. And I talked about this, but it's a wall that I'm confident that I could break through if I really wanted to. But it's one of those things where it's hard to prove that to someone who just doesn't believe you, right? But I'll use another hypothetical just to kind of prove my point though. And if you feel the same way as I do, where it's like you are going your own way, you're a MGTOW type guy, dating doesn't seem worth it, but you also have that fear and you're honest that you have that fear, this is the best way to figure out if it's just the fear that's keeping you from moving forward, or you really legitimately don't think it's worth it. And I always say this, going back to the money scenario, right? Now let's switch it up a little bit. Let's say me and you are at the mall, right? And you say, yo, Chad, I'll give you $100 to go talk to that pretty girl over there. I promise you I do it. Now, why would I do it now? Because I know I'm getting something out of it. See, the problem, like when I really sat down and thought about that shit, my fear of approaching women and talking to women in relation to the ideas that I have about it not being worth it or working out in my favor, when I really sat down and thought about it, I was like, if to put it in the most simplest of terms, the reason why I don't even want to bother to overcome my approach anxiety and fear of going and approaching the girl is because I don't believe it's going to be worth it. I'm not going to get anything tangible out of it. I could go and push myself through that fear, but more than likely I'm going to get rejected. And that's just, again, that's tier 1 of the bullshit that comes with dealing with women. So in my mind, I'm already seeing everything that could potentially go wrong. And that's really the weight of what keeps me from moving forward more than anything else. But if I knew that I would get $100 per approach, I can justify it then. I can say, well, look, regardless of the fear, regardless of the anxiety that I feel, if I push through it, at least I get something out of it. And see, the reason why I'm confident in that is because, and I talked about this before, but I've had more than a few problems in my life. And I've had to overcome a lot of things internally in terms of like general social anxiety, not just with girls. And there have been moments in my life where I had to either stand up for myself, where I had to confront people, and I felt a similar level of anxiety that you would feel, potentially talking to a girl, sometimes even more, Like I remember, for instance, there was one situation where, a former friend of mine, I felt like he had disrespected me. And so I was like, look, I got to cut ties with this guy, and I wanted to be a man about it and tell him to his face. So I went to his house and told him that I won't fucking with him. And I felt a lot of anxiety about that, right? But I knew I had to do it, and I knew I had to be a man about that shit. Right. So that was one of those situations where I had anxiety about a confrontation, but I overcame it because I knew I had to do it. I couldn't look myself in the mirror if I didn't overcome that anxiety and do what I knew I needed to do. And there was another time when I was working at work where we were having issues with the supervisor and nobody else was saying anything. And I was the one that stepped up and called for us to have a meeting so I could actually confront her about the things that were going on. And again, I remember it was that same anxiety and oh my God, right? And one of the more recent examples of this, when I was doing the music video and I talked about this before, when I was doing the music video for the Ballad of Kim Shay Brown, remember, I was in the mall. I was in the mall having to talk to people. I'm doing these scenes in front of people. I can see people looking at me. Do you know how nerve-wracking that was? Oh my God. Dude, I swear, before I even got in the car to go ride up there to film this shit, like I was already mentally prepared. Like it was, hey, you gotta understand, man, I'm a very introverted person. Like, I know how to turn it on, but naturally I'm very introverted. When I'm out, I'm to myself, really, as much as I can be. I just know how to snap into it when I need to. But that was the most nerve-wracking day of like recent memory, man, in terms of like social anxiety and having to talk to people and people looking at you and wondering what the fuck you're doing. Like it was fun and it was worth it. But most importantly, the reason why I was able to do it was because I was like, how can I be a successful music artist and create the visions that I have in my mind if I don't overcome this anxiety? If I'm not willing to go out into the world and film myself doing these things, you know, whatever I've concocted in terms of what the video should be, then that's gonna be a gap in my musical resume. I'm not gonna be able to do video. Like any music video you see, most of the time is the rapper has to go out into the world and do things to interact with people and set things up. So I was like, I don't have a choice. So my back was against the wall. Despite the intense anxiety and fear that I felt regarding it, it was like, what, either I do it and move forward musically, or I don't and forever stagnate in that area. So it was like I had more than enough reason to overcome those fears. So that's why I'm so confident when I say this shit. I know when I want something bad enough, when I need to do it, when I need to have it. I'm not saying like every time, right? But consistently throughout my life, ever since I've been walking this journey of self-improvement, that's one thing that I've noticed, is that when I feel like I really need to do something, fear and anxiety, so that shit is about to get stumped on. Cause I'm not gonna allow myself to be trapped in the corner like that. And so bringing it back to girls, what I realized was like, yes, I definitely still have those lingering fears and anxieties regarding that. But however, I also know that the reason why I'm not willing to even face that and overcome it is because more than likely, or at least I feel and believe, I'm not gonna get enough out of it. One, again, and this is probably the most important thing, is that, you know, I've already accepted the possibility of dying a virgin, of never having a girlfriend, of never being in a relationship, I've already accepted that. I've made peace with it. But when it comes to the other things, the other scenarios where I had to face these fears, these were things I couldn't run away from. Because just because I'm okay with not having a girlfriend, just because I'm okay with not having sex, that doesn't mean that I still don't have goals and aspirations. So when it comes to the things that I can't live without, the goals that I feel I must pursue, it's a completely different level of motivation and desire, where it's like, I gotta go. And that's not present when it comes to when I'm in those moments with girls. It's like, again, she's cute, she's pretty, I feel it, but I know I don't need it. I can walk my path in life. That's just one thing that I just don't really have to confront. It's kind of like, if you have a fear of spiders, you could take time out of your life to face that and confront that. But for most people, if you got like some silly phobia, like a fear of clowns or spiders, you can go your whole life without really confronting it head on and putting it behind you, because you can do everything you need to do without having to make that a big deal. And I think that's part of the issue, not even the issue, but that's part of the reason why I don't have the motivation necessary to overcome or even deal with the fears and anxieties regarding approaching women. And also secondarily, just that I just believe and feel that it wouldn't be worth it. I foresee rejection after rejection after rejection. If I get accepted, and that's, again, now we're entering another level of potential bullshit. But what I suggest, before I move on to the next point though, is that for anybody out there who's like in their MGTOW bag or whatever, I just always say this, you know, ask yourself this, just like I said earlier. If somebody would give you $100 or $500, like I'm broke, so 100 is a lot to me. But if somebody would give you, you know, a little money just to approach a girl, would you do it then? Because I think that if you wouldn't do it, even knowing that you would get something of value out of it, that's when I would question, you know, what's your real motivation for not dealing with and confronting that fear? Because the thing is, it's all fine and dandy to go your own way and go be MGTOW and all that shit, but you do not want to lie to yourself and delude yourself into thinking that you don't want something because of the fear of engaging with it rather than having legitimate reasons, right? And so I know myself well enough. Like, I've had those moments where I felt the fear, I felt the anxiety, but I knew I had to move forward. I had to chase my goals. I had to achieve this aim. I had to do it. So I know me, and I know the difference between what I feel I need to do and what I could live without. And that's a big reason as to why, I don't bother. But again, just ask yourself and reflect on it. And again, would you do it for $100? Would you do it knowing you would get something out of it? Because I think most guys, as MGTOW as they are, if you say I give you $100 to go talk to their girl, they'll do it. They'll do it. Most guys. But I just want to bring up something real quick before I get out of here. Did you know that there's a word for being afraid of women called gynophobia? But I was doing my typical 5 minutes of research. I was like, oh, there's a word for that? But I think gynophobia is more like irrational levels of fear, not just about approach anxiety and shit. But here's a short article. Why are guys afraid to approach women? 6 proven reasons. So let's just read through this. Approaching new people is never an easy decision, but it gets even harder if a guy likes a girl and wants to get to know her better. He would like to approach her, but doesn't know how. He is afraid of rejection, and he isn't sure about himself. He is afraid that he will make a fool out of himself if he says something inappropriate, and in most cases, he quits. Maybe he will try again once he drinks a bit more and gets an ego boost from alcohol, but he surely won't come close to a beautiful girl sober. So the question is, why are guys afraid to approach some women? Are we so intimidating that it's impossible to invite us for a cup of coffee? Find out answers to all these questions in the list below. Let's just get right into it. So it says they are afraid of rejection. You see, when a guy sees a woman who looks so appealing to him, he will instantly lose his head over her. His brain is working at maximum, and he is trying to find good ways to seduce her and make her his. He starts doing things he has never done, and he feels bad about it. Some guys get very nervous, and they start having some tics that look totally unnatural. And when they see how anxious and bad they look, they decide to postpone that moment. The worst thing for them would be if the girl they like so much rejects them because they don't look as natural as they are. Now, I'll say me personally, and people can believe this or not, I don't really have a fear of rejection. I have an expectation of rejection. And really, quite frankly, it's like, if I had to really try to frame the specifics of my fear and my anxiety, it's more about it's like what Will Smith said when he was talking about jumping out of an airplane skydiving. He said that the scariest part is the jump, but when you're actually going down, that's the best. Like, that's when the fear washes away, and so it's that wall between you and the girl and you making that approach. And like that, to me, I think that's the strongest barrier. I think I could live with rejection. Like I said, I expect rejection more than anything else. But I think also I just feel I think a lot of it is that I have like those old feelings that I never grew out of being like the gross weird kid. So I feel like if I was to talk to a girl, I would be imposing my weird self onto her and making her uncomfortable. Like, that's just me trying to frame the specifics of my fear. But really, I don't think like I have it's really just about the rejection. I think I could take the rejection. I just think it's the expectation of it more than anything else. They are afraid of what the girl they're approaching will think of them. Sometimes guys think too much. They overthink things. They haven't happened yet, and they are scared about what could happen if something goes wrong. Their wish to approach a girl is considerable, but the fear of being ashamed is even bigger. They simply don't know how the girl they are approaching will react when they show up in front of her. They don't know what she would think of them. Will she think they're weird, funny, or stupid? And while they overthink like that, they lose all their desire to actually approach the girl, and they simply give up. Now, see, that's me right there. That's me for sure. I think that's more so what my anxiety and fear is about, is that I've so much, it's so much embedded in my mind that I'm still that weird guy that smelled funny and girls didn't like in school. As much as I've grown, as much as I love myself and I'm feeling myself in my own way, I still feel like I'm that, like, and really, you might think I'm being irrational, but I remember actually when this was years ago, so maybe times have changed, I don't know, but I do remember when my friend's girlfriend came to my house and they were talking outside and I went outside. She looked at me and literally said, "What the fuck?" Like off the first word, like she looked at him like, "You hang out with this guy?" And like, so I'm not being crazy when I think like some girl, I think some girls really do still see me as I have perceived myself to be in relation to how I was in high school or school in general. And even when I went on the Pineapple Show, and you guys will see this later, but when I went on the Pineapple Show, I got that same reaction a lot of times. And so I think that's what I think that's a big factor for me, is I just feel like I'm imposing this weird, creepy guy onto them. They think they don't deserve her. No matter how handsome a guy is, he will have cold feet when he wants to approach a girl. He would think that he is not good enough for her and that she will reject him. He doesn't have enough self-esteem and he thinks that she will think the worst about him. That's why guys miss many chances to get to know a girl they like so much. Maybe that girl would be glad that a guy is interested in her and she wouldn't think anything bad. But since guys don't know that, they blow their chance of a great relationship. Now see, I think that's me too, where I feel like I'm lacking in particular areas. I'm either too short, she wouldn't like a black guy, my hair is too nappy, the way that I dress, the way that I walk, I'm broke, I live with my mom, I have a small dick, I'm weird. Like, and so these are the things that just pile up in your mind. And that's why it is really, I can say like, don't think, but this is the problem with even trying to think and comparing yourself to other guys and thinking about what she might think about you as far as like your different traits. Because I just think, and I'm still thinking, it's so easy to think yourself out of talking to a girl, especially when you are so deep into the red pill and the black pill and lookism, and you start to understand what girls like and what they're looking for and shit like that. You'll think yourself out of it so easily. That's why I think it's that's what I think is dangerous for more inexperienced guys. But I'm gonna stop there. I think that's good enough. But yeah, you know, the main takeaway though that I hope guys get from this video is to, you know, just if you do have a fear or anxiety about talking to and approaching the girls, really reflect on that and try to figure out what the specifics of that fear is. And also, especially if you're a MGTOW type of guy, if you're a guy who just said fuck it and you don't bother with dating anymore, it doesn't seem worth it, you know, definitely try to meditate on this and know that if you are going your own way, you're doing it for the right reasons. Because again, you don't want to give up on dating and women and approaching women and things like that over fear when you really deep down want it badly enough but it's the fear, mainly the fear, right? So just knowing the difference between when you're not doing something because you're afraid versus you're not doing it because you don't think it's worth it. Because like I said, man, I've had moments in my life where I was afraid, but I felt that it was worth it, so I did it anyway, right? And so just really think about that aspect of it, you know, because if you really don't think it's worth it, then fuck it. Right? You know, but if it's just a fear that's keeping you from playing the game, then, you know, acknowledge that and then move forward from there. But if it's a combination of maybe you have the fear, but you also know and understand or feel that it wouldn't be worth it for you, and you just really just don't want to be bothered with all that shit, I think that's a perfectly valid reason not to deal with dating. But hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I will see you later. Johnny.